Welcome to Bitcoin Original Gangster, the show that takes no shit when it comes to SegWit. We are the OGs and we will be defending Bitcoin gangster style. We'll be shooting from the hip and exposing the shit in shitcoins. The idea of this show is that you ask us your questions on crypto and we will tell you all that we know. And on that note, let's get the disclaimers out of the way. So all the opinions that you hear on this show are opinions and must only be taken as opinion and never taken as any form of advice, family, financial, sexual or otherwise. And on that note, let's rock and roll.
Let's see here.
Hey TK, can you hear me?
My brother, I can hear you. Can you hear and see me?
Yeah, mate, I can. It's all good.
My audio's good?
Yeah. I'm just going to put my headphones in. 2 seconds.
I should put my headphones in. Give me a hot minute.
There we go. How's that?
I'm just grabbing my headphones too, so we get that.
Yeah, nice.
We got to get that quality sound.
Oh, mate, that sounds good. That sounds good.
All right.
Mate, you will not believe how good looking you look right now on my OBS setup. This looks absolutely mint.
All right, what about right now? How we looking?
Yeah, mate, really good. Really good. This is great.
Solid.
Yeah, so thanks for being the very first ever guest on this Bitcoin Original Gangster channel.
Original Gangster.
Yeah.
I'm not a gangster though, but
Yeah, but this is Bitcoin. This is Bitcoin Original Gangster. You know, so
playing around. Yeah, it's good to be here, bro. It's good to be man. I'm gonna drop these for a minute. Let me see. Hopefully everything sounds still good.
Yeah, mate. Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, so
it's good to be here, man. What's up?
So the reason I wanted to invite you on the show is because I loved your performance the other night on the Bitcoin SV channel when Captain Bitcoin introduced you, and you were just like, you know, if anybody wants to talk about any other coin, then just excuse me while I fall asleep. So I was just like, yeah, this guy knows what he's talking about. So like the reason I wanted to set up this particular channel is because there are so many interviewers, like, you know, crypto interviewers that go round, you know, slapping their sort of like interviewees on the back. It's all nicely. And I'm just like, mate, that guy that you're talking to is an absolute scammer. Like, why are you praising him? You know, like he's some kind of, you know, like got some kind of god complex. I mean, like they're literally, I was just like, you know what, I'm going to get people on this channel and I'm going to say, look, I pretty much know a lot, so you ask me anything that you want to know, like what's a shitcoin, and I'll give you the answer straight away. And so one of the reasons I wanted to have a chat with you is because you're in an interesting situation in the fact that you've obviously, well, you seem to like understand BSV, and yet you're hanging around with those boys who are kind of like sitting on the fence. You know, they've moved away from BTC, but they're just like, well, you know, I'm not sure, you know, BCH maybe, I'm still holding a little bit of that, I'm not too sure. Yeah, so that's why I wanted to get you on the show. And first of all, obviously, so you can introduce yourself to everybody in BSV, because personally, I think that anybody who comes on this particular channel is going to be world famous very soon. So that includes you. Seriously.
That's funny. Well, hey, let me commend you first on doing this show, you know, with respect to what you said about having real conversation with real people. I think it's a timely time for that. And I think it's really needed in the world. You know, I've often said that, you know, the only people that are speaking the truth nowadays are the comedians, you know, because so many of us have been frightened out of what makes us interesting. We have been frightened out of the beliefs that make us unique, that give us personality. And the thing about personality, man, is having a personality is inherently controversial. You know, if you don't want to be controversial, then you got to get rid of your personality. That's the only way to do it, because being an individual is offensive. And we're so afraid of being offensive or being seen as offensive. We're so afraid to step on any toes that we don't ask the interesting questions. We don't challenge one another. But that's tragic, man, because when we don't challenge one another and ask each other the provocative questions, we don't get a chance to grow. So I hope you are able to get people on this show that are having real conversation. And I will say, even in your conversation with me, don't hold back. If there's anything you want to ask me, nothing's off limits. I mean, I'm fully capable of taking care of myself and establishing any boundaries if they need to be set. With respect to what you said about the guys, there is something I want to say about that. Isaac, Derek, Steve, all of these guys were my friends before I even knew about Bitcoin or cared about Bitcoin.
I thought you were about to say they were my friends. They're not anymore.
No, they still are, man. I don't talk to these guys because of Bitcoin. I talk to these guys because I've interacted with them and engaged with them in the real world as human beings who are passionate about freedom. And if it weren't for these three guys, I wouldn't really know about Bitcoin. My earliest conversations were with them. And even though there was a long stretch of time where I just kind of like shelved the interest and postponed my research, these were the guys that were talking to me, that were sending me resources, that were answering my questions and so forth. So I got a lot of love for those brothers. I got a lot of respect for those brothers. And for me, I think you've lost something very important in life if you lose your ability to have fun with people and enjoy conversation with people just because they disagree with you about something that is very, very, very important. Because no matter who you are going to have very interesting, wonderful, creative, brilliant people that think you're wrong about some very important things. At least one of the following: religion, politics, economics, right? Like everybody in your life probably thinks you're wrong about something critical in one of those topics. And it's important to be able to have dialogue with people that you disagree with, to interpret their beliefs charitably and still be able to, grab a beer with them, still be able to grab a burger with them, still be able to switch the conversation and talk about sports and say, hey, look, we might never see eye to eye on that thing. I might think you're wrong about that thing, but we can still be cool. That, to me, that's important.
Yeah,
that's a part of keeping it real. In fact, I don't think it's courageous at all if you feel like you have to isolate yourself from everyone who thinks differently than you. I think if you really want to keep it real, then you can be the kind of person who boldly expresses what you believe while also not being intimidated or easily flustered by people who think you're wrong.
Yeah, well, here's a question for you. So let's use a metaphoric example of this. Okay, so let's say I tell a chap who I'm having a conversation with that 2 + 2 = 4, and then he says, well, yeah, I don't think it does. I think it might equal 3, and I'm like, well, no, 2 + 2 = 4, and he's like, yeah, but it might equal 5, it might equal 6, and then I'm like, no, 2 + 2 = 4, and then he accuses me of not being open-minded enough. That's what it feels like. Do you know what I mean? So where do you go in that situation?
So first, if I'm having that conversation, I'm taking a completely different approach. If someone says to me, I think 2 + 2 = 5, my instinctive response is, why do you think that way?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Like, why do you think that way? Like, because I think you are so wrong, right? And I'm absolutely shocked that you've made it this far in life with that belief. So I'm curious as hell. Like, how did you make it that far? Like, surely you have heard the belief that 2 + 2 = 4, right? Surely you've heard the arguments for that. Surely someone taught you that, right? So why do you disagree? Why do you disagree with the belief that 2 + 2 = 4? I want to understand. And perhaps that understanding will provide me with what I need to know in order to better appreciate and articulate my own beliefs. Perhaps it will create a bridge of communication that allows me to bring you over to what it is that I think. And maybe it won't change anything, but I think it offers me far more possibilities than just having a back and forth that's like, you're wrong. No, you're wrong. You're wrong. No, you're wrong. And don't get me wrong. I'm not advocating for some weak, fluffy, stupid PC belief that says you should persist in having conversations with people who are demonstrating themselves to be stubborn. You don't owe it to anybody to have a conversation. So if someone is telling you, I think you're closed-minded because you don't see reality the way I do, you are totally free to opt out of that conversation. And that is an option I've exercised sometimes. So if I'm talking to somebody that's like, well, you're wrong, TK, and I respond with curiosity, well, why do you think that way? And maybe they're rude about it, or they're not open-minded, or they're not thinking critically, or they're being disrespectful. I'm not going to disrespect myself by wasting my time. I've got things to do. I'm going to exit the conversation. I'm going to say, hey, man, we don't see eye to eye. Let's go be successful in two different directions. You do you, I do me, you know, let's move on, right? I'm not going to waste my time, going on and on with somebody if I don't think I'm learning anything or getting anywhere.
What if you move on and you come across another one that says 2 + 2 = 5?
Well, that's not a hypothetical.
Exactly. It is. Yeah.
That's the world we live in. Take anything that you think you're right about, and there's an endless supply of people that are constantly ready and willing to tell you that you're wrong. So my approach to all of this is to be non-reactive. It starts with, am I getting value out of the conversations I am participating in? If the answer to that is no, I don't care what you're saying. I'm already opting out because I'm not getting value out of the conversation, right? And if I am getting value, I'm going to ask the questions that help me understand your beliefs so that I can be able to use that to become a better educator, better communicator, better critical thinker, and so forth. But yeah, man, I mean, you have to, if you have a message that you believe in. So I'll give you an example, because life for me is bigger than Bitcoin. You know, one of the things I believe is that we all have the permission and the power to be the predominant creative force in our own lives. I believe that, I don't believe that it's fluff. I don't believe that it's wishful thinking to say that we have the power to make a difference, right? And so that's a controversial message in today's times. There are a lot of people out there who disagree with me on that. There are some people out there who think that's unrealistic and they don't want to hear it. There are some people out there who think that's insensitive to suggest that human beings have agency, that they have the capacity to take responsibility for creating change in their lives. There are some people that they feel like that conflicts with a victim narrative they want to push. And so maybe they don't like that message, but I'm not here to try to control who likes the message. I'm here to be me and to consistently put out that message every single day so that whoever is listening and is inclined to accept it, they can benefit from whatever I have to say. And the people who disagree, well, that's just life. But I don't focus on that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's quite. It's a good analogy to live your life by. I mean, the reason I brought up this conversation is because I've literally, we're in lockdown at the moment, but I thought, well, if everyone else is locked down, I can go for a cheeky little walk and nobody will know. And I thought it would be interesting, just kind of walking around. Like the local sort of entertainment complex where we are, and it's literally like a ghost town. But there was this guy that I know who was just on his way to the shops, and he's like, "Oh, Toshi, how's it going?" So yeah, we had a good old chinwag, and then he goes, "Oh yeah, so I bought some Bitcoin the other day, got a really good price for it," and I was like, "What BTC?" And he goes, "Of course," and I was like, "Oh mate, we've had this conversation so many times, what?" And the guy, he's university educated, I've already told him and explained to him everything related to BTC. A store of value does nothing. This started out as a medium of exchange. A medium of exchange is a tool that enables, encourages, and accelerates the facilitation of trade. If it can't do that, it is not money. Money is a function. If it cannot function as money, it is not money. So why are you buying this thing when it does absolutely nothing? Because a medium of exchange is competitive by nature. So being a tool, people are just simply going to flock to the one that facilitates trade in the best way. And the one that facilitates trade in the best way is the one that everybody uses. And if people stop using it because they can't use it because either there's not enough capacity on chain, or there, for example, with anonymity, global trade and commerce cannot use an anonymous payment system because it doesn't carry any reasonable expectation in the trade for you to have any legal protection on. So people aren't going to use anonymous coins, and they're not going to use a coin that can't scale to cater for the size of the market. So therefore, eventually people will just simply flock to the one that can scale and the one that everybody does use, and everything else will be phased out. And it's like, I've explained this to him, and like somewhere along the line between, explaining 2 + 2 = 4, like, something's gonna miss. And I'm just like, is it me? Have I done something? Like, are you this stupid? You don't appear to be this stupid, but you're being really stupid at the moment.
Yeah. Well, man, hey, I agree with everything you just said about the situation. I mean, I like to say I'm not a BSV maximalist. I'm a BSV rationalist, which means I think this is the only coin that's going to work, or the only network, the only blockchain that's going to work, because it is the only one that is actually building things out in a way that gets the economic incentives right. That's not a dogmatic position. That's not a religious position. That's an evidence-based position, and you kind of have this politically correct view that it's inherently good to champion diversity at the expense of truth itself. No. We have to start with truth. We have to start with evidence, and then we promote everything from within that context. But there's nothing inherently good about saying, hey, many different coins, just because on the surface, it makes you sound like you're open-minded, in fact, there are a lot of people who will say, hey, look, I don't care about who wins or what wins. I just want freedom. Well, I just want freedom too. I just want a freer society too. I just want a better economy too. That doesn't mean I have to pretend to be open-minded about every bad idea. That doesn't mean I have to pretend that any proposal is something that's actually going to work. We have to evaluate proposals based on the actual results they produce, not on the intentions behind them. And when I look at what's happening in the altcoin space, nothing looks good. Absolutely nothing looks good besides Bitcoin SV. A lot of them get the rhetoric right. They sound very freedom-loving. They sound very inspiring and charismatic. But when you look underneath the hood, it just all looks really bad. But another thing I'd say too about the guy that you're arguing with, because I imagine that we all kind of have that experience with something that we believe, even if it's not about Bitcoin. And I'd say a couple of things. One, there are some beliefs that come with a greater social cost than other beliefs. Let's just be real about that, right? There are some things which, if you accept as true, will cause certain people to maybe have an initial impression of you, cause people to not like you or misunderstand you in a particular way, and that can be tough. And to ask people to believe that BSV is the true Bitcoin in comparison with BTC is also to ask a lot of these people to give up their standing in the very communities where they have earned a lot of respect or built a large following. Let's just face it, man. There are already cases of people who made their lives a lot more difficult by sticking out their necks for BSV, right? I remember I first kind of had my wake up call where I just naively, shared a tweet. It was a Craig Wright quote, and I was naive at this time. I was just like, oh, this is a great idea. Anybody will be able to see this, right? And some guy retweeted it and tried to intimidate me by tagging my employer, like, this guy doesn't know how to recognize a scam. And it was like, he was literally trying to bully me and intimidate me. Wow. He didn't want to argue with me and criticize the idea itself. He tried to scare me into believing that if I ever stick my neck out and say I support BSV, that people out there are going to make life difficult for me. So that kind of intimidation is real. And you got a lot of people out there who will have a harder time seeing the evidence because of the social consequences accepted with it, and that's unfortunate, but that happens to be a phenomenon that happens in the broader world in every aspect of life. But all we can do is, number one, maintain hope. Don't let the people that are antagonistic or disagreeable convince you into thinking that it's meaningless to preach your message. Because even if only 1 out of every 100 people you come across see the light, that's a big difference. The second thing I would say is there's more to social change than just making theoretical arguments. Sometimes people have to taste the truth, see the truth, touch the truth, and feel the truth in order to recognize it. And not everybody comes down the path of abstract argumentation. I remember when Uber and Lyft and ride sharing apps first came out. I was talking with a friend about it, a friend who uses these ride sharing apps all the time now, and all he could come up with was like, "Oh no, man, I don't want to get in a car with a serial killer," right? I could not convince him through argumentation that these were like legit apps that wouldn't produce that result for him. But it wasn't until it was accessible. It wasn't until it was in front of his face. Most people who use Facebook, who use Twitter, who use Instagram, they don't use it because someone gave them an argument for it. They use these resources because someone took the time to build it out and to develop it, make it user-friendly, make it accessible, and create a sense of urgency and necessity around it. That's how most people think. I don't know if Henry Ford actually said this, but he's often been quoted as having said, "Had I asked my customers what they wanted, they would have requested a faster horse." Right? Sometimes you win people over by being entrepreneurial and just building the world that you want to have. And instead of changing the way they see the world, you change the world that they see, and they react accordingly. And I think that's how we're gonna win this thing.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, it's really great listening to you. What's your background? Are you a motivational speaker of some sort?
Am I a motivational speaker? So if you had asked me that 3 years ago, I would have ran in the opposite direction because I would have been ashamed of owning that label. But I'll take that label. That's cool with me. Every motivational book you read now, they spend the first chapter trying to argue why they're not a motivational speaker because there's a lot of shame around that. No one wants to be a cheesy self-helpy person, but I'll take that. I want to bring the swagger back to motivation, so I'll take that. But my background, here it is. I've got a pretty diverse professional background, but for the last 6 years, I've been working as an entrepreneur in the alternative education space.
Is that what they call it? Alternative education?
Say it again.
Is that what they call it? Alternative education?
Alternative education in the sense of alternatives to the traditional college system. So our company Praxis is an apprenticeship program that's designed to help people develop professional skills and launch their careers, right? But to do it in 1 year. So instead of going to school for 4, 5, 6 years and paying 6 figures and accumulating a bunch of debt, you go through a professional boot camp and an apprenticeship. You learn in the real world, you develop real skills, and you build your career out that way. So that's an alternative to mainstream thinking about higher education, because most people who go through high school, they're funneled right into the college system. Yeah. Most people have been kind of told that the only way to be a player in the economic world is to have a college degree. So I mean an alternative in that sense. But I'm also an advocate for alternative education at every level. I advocate for unschooling, homeschooling, private schooling, charter schooling. I think fighting against the government monopoly on education is one of the essential keys to human freedom. You need choice in education, just like you need choice in fitness. And education is so far behind almost every other industry in terms of the options they present to people. So I've been working in that space for the past several years. And alongside that, I've been doing a lot of teaching, on economic literacy, personal finance, entrepreneurial thinking, and so forth. So I'm an educator by nature, man. Whether I wear the label or not, there's nothing that I love more than taking ideas or discovering ideas that empower humanity, using those ideas in a way that enhance the quality of my life, and then teaching other people how to do the same for themselves.
Great. Yeah, that's really good. So how's it going educating your buddies, Isaac and Derek and Steve?
Oh, man. So I just look at these conversations as an opportunity for me to have fun. One goal that I have is to be able to contribute to this space by becoming an informed, intelligent thinker who really understands the ins and outs of Bitcoin and can communicate it in a way that is persuasive and compelling. I do not believe that I'm there yet. And I know that, there have been some comments where people are like, who's this guy? He just discovered it and he thinks he's a guru. I don't think I'm a guru at all. I think I have a long, long, long way to go. And I I don't flatter myself at all, with anybody being like, oh, you're a cool dude. I know that I have a lot of study and research to do. So the first goal of these conversations for me is to learn. And one of the best ways to learn about what you believe and is to put yourself in a position where you got to defend it against objection. So those guys are good for me. I have a lot of fun. I get a lot of value out of them, even if they never agree with me. But with that being said, those guys have taken a lot of heat from the BCH community for explicitly saying very positive things about BSV. And they've gone on record saying that in many ways they lean more towards BSV than BCH. So I think something that us BSV supporters could probably get a little better at is learning how to recognize when you have a win. Sometimes we can be so all or nothing with victory that we can't recognize progress. It's sort of like if you're driving from Phoenix to San Diego, for the overwhelming majority of your trip, you're somewhere other than San Diego, right? You're not actually in San Diego until the last part of your trip. But that doesn't mean you're still in Phoenix. You are making progress. You're not where you initially started. And I think sometimes when we try to persuade people about things, we have to be able to celebrate the fact that we are making progress, even if that person doesn't embrace the entirety of what we think. So, Steve Patterson still has some skepticism and concerns about Craig Wright. That's cool. Why should that offend me? This isn't a religion, right? He likes BSV more than he likes BCH in terms of what he thinks is going to win. Ditto for Isaac. Ditto for Derek. Why would I be offended or frustrated when these guys say all of these positive things about what I support, so much so that the communities they are associated with feel like they're blaspheming? Like, why should I be offended by that? I want more people in BSV, and I don't want to put some kind of prerequisite out there that you have to accept some sort of creed, or that you have to live according to some sort of catechism. Come in for whatever reason you want, man.
So have they shared with you the blaspheming that they've been receiving?
Yeah, we've talked about it on the conversation. So one example of this, I don't know if you remember when Hotep Jesus was hosting his BSV BCH debates.
Yeah.
Well, he initially, I'm trying to think, it was initially a BSV BTC debate. Then he said he wanted to do a BSV BCH debate, and Steve Patterson was the guy that he picked. The whole BCH
that's probably why I blocked him.
Yeah, man. They just went crazy. They harassed Hotep about it, and he basically dropped Steve Patterson.
Whoa.
And he picked Van Armoney instead. And look,
way.
I don't have a problem with who he picked. I don't have a problem with the fact that he picked Van Armoney, especially if he would have just went ahead and picked him first. But it was a good example of the cult-like mindset where here's a guy that's eager to defend BCH. And everyone was like, no, you're not legitimate. You've been infiltrated. You're a BSV spy. Derek McGill gets that all the time as well. Isaac gets it all the time. I mean, because these guys, it's almost as if it's considered to be against the BCH religion for them to say BSV is doing these things better than BCH. In fact, I think it's a bigger win for us, for someone to be like, yo, I'm a BCH guy. I want BCH to win, but I think you guys are doing X, Y, and Z much better than us. I mean, isn't that the biggest kind of endorsement? Why is it that whenever we see somebody like some celebrity get on Twitch, everybody just goes crazy, right? Oh, look, the celebrity's on Twitch. You and I both know that if Kim Kardashian or Kanye West got on Twitch tomorrow, everyone will be losing their minds, right? Because there is something beautiful and powerful about people who aren't part of the club coming from the outside and saying, hey, I think you guys are doing something cool. I don't go to the church. I'm not part of the religion. I'm an outsider. In fact, I thought this whole thing was really weird, and I still think it's weird, but there's something cool here. You can't tell me that people wouldn't go crazy over that. You know what I mean? So I think there's a lot of room to lighten up with this kind of stuff.
Well, we'll check it out. So, I mean, I've just written a book recently on mental health, and it explains why people troll, because basically all human beings have a negativity bias, but in order to calm us down, we have to sort of do higher thinking and activate the hippocampus that sits over the amygdala, and it's the amygdala that generates all the negative thoughts. So trolling is like something that people get pleasure from. and I totally understand it. But if you're a celebrity, and these trolls start trolling you, for what you would think is absolutely no reason whatsoever, and you're getting nothing for it, you're just simply having to put up with it. Imagine going on Twitch and somebody trolls you and you get paid for it. You're just like, yeah, knock yourself out. Say what you want. I don't care. Do you know what I mean? Twitch is the perfect place for celebrities. It is amazing. As soon as a celebrity with millions of followers gets that, and then trolls, trolls basically have to pay to say something nasty about them, they will be all over it. And fans who are genuine won't mind paying to pay them a compliment because they're talking with them, and the celebrity will probably reply back because they'll appreciate it. But yeah, trolls, knock yourself out. You want to say something bad about me? Pay for it. Yeah, it reminds me of that Goodfellas movie. Your wife steal whatever. F you, pay me. You want to call me names? F you, pay me. It's only going to take one massive celebrity to realize that, and I think they're all going to follow. It's a brilliant platform. I'm just waiting for something like that to happen.
And at a certain level, nobody gets this better than celebrities, right? Because what's the old slogan that all press is good press?
Yeah.
And there's a very real sense in which they do get paid from their trolls, right? Kanye West benefits, and he knows he does. He benefits from the angry people as much as he does from the people who adore him. I mean, if you don't think that whole incident that he had with Taylor Swift was good for his career, I don't know what to tell you about PR, man. I don't even know how to get you started on the PR game. That was good for his career. I'm not saying that what he did was good, but the way that he was talked about, the way the outrage shined a spotlight on him, these people know how to play the game. They know how to leverage the hate to their own advantage. So they do get it. It's just a little bit of education that's required to show them how they can do it on these platforms. I'm so excited about the commercialization of the internet and the possibility of microtransactions. It's easy to criticize, blockchain-based social media right now. It's easy to be like, oh, well, Twitch is, it doesn't have this yet, or, nobody's really on it but BSB people. That's easy because in the initial stages, all creative ideas are vulnerable. That's why most people run the other way. That's why only the bold, are the ones who build, because it's easy to criticize creative ideas. But I really do think people respond at the end of the day to network effects, not to our intellectual arguments, at least the average person. And so they use platforms not because you gave them an argument that they can make money or that it's more rational. They use platforms because all my other friends are using them. They use platforms because they feel left behind by not being on the platform. A lot of people who are on Facebook and Instagram, they don't even want to be there, but they're there because they feel like they have to be, because that's the only way they can stay in the loop with the family pictures and all that kind of stuff. And so it's just a matter of strategically building the kind of momentum that will create the urgency, that will create the critical mass, that will cause people to start pouring in. Not because we beat them down with the argument stick, but we just created something that's so freaking useful that they feel like they're behind the times if they're not on it.
Yeah, have you read that Medium article I sent you about the power of Bitcoin's distributed, decentralized single ledger?
Yeah, man, you sent me about like 7 articles, but I read them all.
Did you? Yeah, did you read that one about the single ledger?
Yeah, so there were 2 you did. One was where you talked about the 3 forks and how we got here, and there was the other where you argued for why a single ledger is preferable. Both of them, but which one you want to talk about?
Yeah, it's the single ledger is the one that I want to talk about, because it's multiple ledgers that cause problems. It's multiple ledgers that cause fraud and mismanagement. But sure. The reason we have multiple ledgers at the moment is because it's too dangerous to store all that information on one single ledger, because it can be attacked. It can be taken down. It can be corrupted. It can get virus software in there. So the example that I used was air traffic controllers. Each airspace and each country has its own airspace that they do air traffic controller in. Because it would if you had the entire world running on a single database, with air traffic control, and it got taken down, it would take down the entire industry. But that's why the flight, Malaysian Airlines flight MH370 was able to disappear, because it was flying in and out of Malaysian and Thai airspace, and every time it flew out of the airspace, the airspace that it was in at the time was just, all right, not a problem anymore. Oh, it's back again. Oh, it's out, not a problem anymore. Oh, it's back again. Oh, it's out, not a problem. Who's responsible for tracking it? And then the pilot was able to fly out to the Indian Ocean, and nobody really raised the alarm, and everybody was thinking, well, it's not my problem. And that's because you're using two databases. Whereas now, because Bitcoin single ledger is actually distributed itself, you can now have everything in a centralized ledger. And a micropayment, I mean, when I know BCH are thinking, oh, it's, we're just talking, it's peer-to-peer cash, they say, and all that kind of crap. What they don't realize is that a micropayment is just simply, the smallest data record that a miner is willing to put on this ledger that's still economically viable for them to do so. That's why micropayments are absolutely massive, because it's not really about payments. It's about an economically self-sustaining single ledger that is decentralized and already distributed, so there's no single central point of failure. It's massive. So now everybody, like, if you've got your family photos and whatnot, I already know other people that had their profiles on Facebook, and then because they're linked to cryptocurrency in some way, Facebook has just written to them and just said, all right, well, you've made up some excuse about how they've gone against the terms and conditions, and they've closed your account. No argument, no nothing whatsoever. It's like, hold on a minute, I've got 5-10 years worth of family photos on my profile here, and they're just like, well, you put them on a server, we own them. Because they do. At the moment, people think, oh, I've got a profile, therefore it's mine. No, it's not. That profile is on a corporate server, and anything that you upload to it, that corporate owns. Which is kind of scary when you think about it, and people just don't get that. This is why Bitcoin single ledger is so important, and why microtransactions are so important, because it's self-sustaining. So when you upload your data, that data is yours forever. And I think that's what people are missing, because that is so big. It's so big. Like, I mean, one of the reasons they, a system of driverless cars, isn't running on that, because again, if you were to have it on a centralized server, somebody could attack it. It would be far too dangerous. Whereas now you can have something on a single ledger, because it's the ledger that's actually distributed itself. There are just my mind just literally, there are so many possibilities. And also, let's say, for example, matching blood types, or organ donation and stuff like that. If you've got them all on, and let's say in the United States, so the United States, as far as I'm aware, has got a record for all the vehicles throughout the United States. But if you're a murderer, law enforcement, each state has its own law enforcement, and the law enforcement, the police, in each area do not share criminal records or databases with each other. So if you're a murderer, you can just simply commit one murder in each state, and the police won't have a clue who you are or what to look for or anything like that. Whereas now all that data can be collated on one single ledger, and everybody can see it. The possibilities are just absolutely massive. And it's not just that, but it's, in order to have an economically self-sustaining ledger, the money that funds it has to be neutral, which just so happens to make it the best money that the world has ever seen. As a byproduct of this single ledger, which is why everyone's going to use it. Which is why, and my background is kind of it's financial services and law and economics, and I see the issues that having an inflationary currency does. Like, businesses are constantly, it's a constant uphill struggle, because not only are you having to deal with the interest rate that the banks put on the money they lend you, and the reason they have to put an interest rate on it is because if they were to just simply give it to you with no interest, there would be no velocity with it. You would just be like, oh right, well, I'll just wait till they give me some more. They have to put an interest rate on it in order to get it circulating, in order to give you a kick in the arse. So not only are you dealing with the interest rate the banks put on it, you're also having to deal with the depreciation of the money that you're holding, as they're printing more and more and more, which is 2 to 3%. So businesses can go bust so quickly. But imagine if a business has been going for years and years and years, and they're using a deflationary currency. Imagine the savings that they've got in the bank to deal with any economic crisis that they might have. They're not just simply going to go bust within a week, like so many businesses do. And that's where my passion is, because being an entrepreneur, it makes my heart bleed when I see someone who has stuck their neck out to start a business to try and provide a service that's good for them and benefits the community. Because if it wasn't good and it didn't benefit the community, people wouldn't pay for it, obviously. But they can go bust so quickly at the moment there's a little bump in the road in the economy. Whereas this is what Bitcoin fixes. And this is why I get passionate about it, because I'm like, all these douchebags who are supporting BTC and BCH, and I'm just like, oh my God, can you not see what you're doing? Anonymity does not work. It is ridiculous. If you have what's stupid about anonymity is that it is centralized, because whoever added the anonymity are the people who control the network, and they can do whatever they want because they're not accountable to anybody, because it's anonymous. Whereas, let's say if you do have a centralized, what they would class as a centralized network, if the person who created it is accountable to someone, it means they can't do anything that nobody else would know about. So therefore, who cares if it's centralized? Everybody can see what everyone else is doing. It's fair. So this is what blows my mind about these people are saying, oh, it's anonymous, we need freedom. If it's anonymous, it is centralized. Somebody has control of that thing. And this again is what really gets my goat about SegWit. Hence, I've called this show, the tagline is the show that takes no shit when it comes to SegWit, because they broke the chain of signatures. They broke the chain of signatures, which means the signatures are no longer, they can't validate each other, and therefore, they're not. Nobody can hold somebody to account if they're if they're messing up the system. It completely undermines Bitcoin. So the fact that they refused to change the ticker symbol and kept the name Bitcoin really gets my goat. So what? Hey, man. Yeah. So
I love the passion. First of all, I appreciate the passion. It reminds me. I remember. So there was a talk Zig Ziglar gave, and a person in the audience comes up to him after he gives this, long rant on positive thinking, and says, you motivational speakers, you think positive thinking can do anything? And he says, no, I don't think it can do anything. He says, but I do believe that positive thinking can do anything better than negative thinking can. He said, suppose you and I are stuck together on an island, and the only way you know how to survive, the only way that you can survive is if I perform heart surgery on you. But I'm not a doctor. Those are the facts. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I've got one of two attitudes I can have. The first attitude is, oh no, let's give up. We're all going to die because I don't know what I'm doing. The other attitude is like, hey, I don't know what I'm doing, but we don't have any other alternatives. Let's just give this the best that we can do, and let's see what happens. Which attitude do you want me to have? You want me to have the negative one, or you want me to have the positive one? Now, I give that illustration just because the whole Bitcoin fixes this meme has been circulating as a way to kind of mock the sort of hyped up promises that people have made with the blockchain. And I get it. It's very useful. But like Zig Ziglar believed about positive thinking, I believe that every aspect of human life can get better in a Bitcoin world, whether that be directly or indirectly, because exchange is one of the most fundamental features of human experience. And there is no aspect of human exchange that does not improve by us having sound money. So Bitcoin does provide us with that. When you were talking about the data thing, by the way, I love the missing flight analogy you used in that article.
Nice.
I forgot about that till you mentioned it, because the reason there were separate databases was because in a centralized system, that's actually required for security. You can't afford to have a single ledger when that ledger is centralized, right? And yet the downside of that was, as we saw with the missing flight, that there are leaks in the communication system that could result in tragedies such as these. Yeah. And Bitcoin fixes that. I was listening to the CoinGeek presentation by the EHR group. I think they had 3 different speakers talk about it, and they were talking about in the healthcare system, there's so much money that's wasted, so much time that's wasted by people having to repeat tests they've already taken, by people getting the wrong prescriptions, all because there's just this sort of like terrible system of a whole bunch of different ledgers. And even if people are nice about it, they just don't have the incentive to share information. It doesn't benefit them, and it costs them a lot in time, in terms of time and energy. And so Bitcoin can create some radical changes with that. Also, even with what you said about Facebook, if they shut you down, and this has happened to people, they shut you down, you lose 5 years worth of photos or whatever. The concept of portability of data from social media site to social media site is something we have never freaking witnessed, man. Isn't it exciting to know that, if there's a BSV Facebook, whatever, or BSV Instagram, everything that you're putting there, you can basically port that to some other social media site. If that one drops down, everybody abuses this term censorship resistant, but to me, that would be a kind of use for censorship resistant that I can get down with, as opposed to the misunderstood usage of it.
Oh, definitely, yeah. So what you just mentioned there was kind of like touching on supply chains. When you were saying people have got all the different records and they can't be bothered to update them and stuff like this. Supply chains is massive. This is going to completely revolutionize the global economy, because at the moment, the best example that I can give, for a supply chain as to when it works well is McDonald's. But that's because McDonald's own their supply chain from start to finish. This is why they're one of the most successful franchises in the world, because their food is the most consistent. It doesn't matter where you go, Thailand, Russia, America, some obscure, Eastern Bloc country, you can pretty much guarantee that when you go into McDonald's, you are going to get the same Mackie D's that you had at home that you love.
The same terrible, ridiculously bad for you hamburger in Kansas as you can get, in same crap in Kansas, the same crap in Michigan, same crap in Tokyo. I got you.
But did you see the queue of cars around McDonald's when McDonald's announced that they were closing down? Did you see that there was a sudden rush of McDonald's? All these people needing their Mackie D's fixed. They were like, "Oh no, Mackie D's is closing down! Quick, give me that Big Mac!" It's like the final supper. Amazing, But have you seen the movie The Founder about McDonald's?
No, I haven't seen that.
Oh, mate, if you're into business, it is just absolutely sensational.
What do I need to? What is it? A documentary? Let me put it on my wish list.
Oh, it's called The Founder. It's got Michael Keaton in it, who plays Ray Kroc, who founded McDonald's, and it's the story of McDonald's in a movie. It is absolutely fantastic. About basically, he was like, because he was a businessman, he was an entrepreneur. He was initially saying, look, I'm gonna take a 1 cent for every burger that's sold, blah 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 blah. He wasn't making any money, and the guys weren't listening to him. And then suddenly he's in a bank one day, and somebody hears his problems and goes, look, mate, you need to start buying land. Because when you buy the land and somebody builds a restaurant on it, you own that land. Therefore, you basically own that restaurant. And if they don't do what you say, you can close them down. And that's when he was just like, all right, so that's how I get around this. So rather than taking a percentage of the burgers, he started buying the land and building restaurants on it himself. So therefore, these other guys that he was in business with, that he wasn't agreeing with, basically didn't have a say in what he was doing anymore. It was just, the whole story is just phenomenal. Like what happened and how he went about it. So do that. But my point is that McDonald's their supply chain is so efficient. I've never known a McDonald's run out of food. I've never known the food to be inconsistent anywhere. It's a fantastic operation that they have. But that's because they own the supply chain. Whereas small businesses don't have the luxury of being able to do that. So if you're a local coffee shop and you're sort of like trying to specialize in fair trade, organically grown coffee beans, you basically have to take the word of your supplier that your beans are what he or they say they are. You have no way of telling this. He might think, oh, right, so you want fair trade, organically grown coffee. Well, we'll just tell you that that's exactly what they are and put another 10% on it. Nice one. Do you know what I mean? You've got no way of telling. Whereas if you've got a supply chain, which is with everything on the blockchain, you can see where that coffee bean has been from start to finish. Which farmer initially produced it, because they'll obviously want their money for it, so they've got no reason to sort of like try and screw themselves out of money. You can see when weight has been added to the bag somewhere. You can see where the bag has been stored in a warehouse for too long. You can see how much it was sold for at the market. You can see you can see everything. You can see where the inefficiencies are. And this all comes down to being on a single ledger. You can't do this on multiple ledgers. This you can probably tell from my voice that I'm really passionate about business, because that's kind of like my background.
Man, I absolutely love it. Hey, keep talking. I'm gonna pause my camera for a second and just switch rooms. I'm gonna go into my office right quick.
Yeah, mate. Yeah, that's all right. I'll pause this quickly. All right.
Yeah, sound still good?
Yeah, mate. Still look good. Fantastic.
Solid.
Yeah, thanks for doing it. Yeah, so I was just saying about the supply chains, making everything more efficient, because literally you can see everything on this single ledger. And I mean, I'm just going back to what we were saying earlier about somebody saying 2 + 2 might equal 3. You've got people like Roger Ver running around telling people, actively promoting them and getting them to believe that 2 + 2 equals 3. What do you say to people like him? You're like, mate, stop. You're wrong. It's like, no. 2 + 2 equals 3. It's like, mate, how can you not see this? I mean, and also, what's worse is that people actually refer to him as Bitcoin Jesus. So those who don't know anything about Bitcoin think, oh right, well we better listen to somebody who's got a proven track record that seems to know what they're talking about. And it's the same with these BTCers. Like Tony Vase and Jimmy Wrong and Simon Dixon and oh god, they have no clue what they're doing. So this is one of the reasons why I thought I would start this channel and get you on it, because you seemed you were so good at talking and said and putting your point across, that I kind of actually wanted to know how you came across BSV, because we got to know. I first got to know you in November 2019, so that was what, like about four months ago now. So if all of your friends, if it was your friends who got you into crypto, and they were in other camps, how did you find BSV?
Yeah. So before I answer that, can I just can we chat a few minutes about just this idea of people listening to people that
Of course, yeah.
we might disagree with or think are scams, whatever? Because I think that's always going to be the case. We're always going to have that, and I think one of the healthiest and most constructive things we can do in life is develop a robust philosophy for how we deal with those kinds of people, for how we communicate truth in a world where so many people are perhaps easily deceived or easily distracted. There was a commercial, it was like a video game system commercial years ago, and you had two women standing side by side, and one of them was like all buttoned up, dressed professionally like in a business outfit or something, and she's talking about the features of the video game system, right? And next to her was this like beautiful girl in a bikini who didn't talk about the features of the system at all. She just like said the name of the system and then did like a dance, and all the attention was going to her. And the girl, with the business outfit on, who was talking about the features of the system, but the features, no one was listening to her. And she was just so frustrated because everyone's focused on the dancing bikini girl. And the commercial's funny because we all recognize that that's a phenomenon that takes place in every area of life. We all have moments where we feel like the person who is on the right side of the argument, the right side of truth, and we just can't get people's attention because they're distracted by the girl in the bikini. And it's like, come on, man, like take your eyes off the bikini for 5 seconds and like listen to the features. And people are like, nah, man, I don't want to hear about the features. You know what I mean? I want some eye candy. And sometimes you can be tempted to maybe water down your message and just make it all about the eye candy in order to compete for the attention of those people. But something to keep in mind is that if people can only be drawn to a project or a product, you know, by a dance in the bikini, then how valuable are those people going to be anyway? So
True.
sometimes we
Yeah.
focus only on the consequences of not winning an argument,
Mm.
but sometimes we need to think about the consequences of winning an argument. What do you actually win? You know what I mean? Like you want to be careful about building any kind of movement or community around the wrong people, you know,
Mm.
around people, you know, you want to be careful about spending too much of your time and energy, you know, trying to cater to people that don't care about reason, that don't care about logic. And I know that may appear to contradict what I said earlier about building and making something useful and necessary so that people are drawn by utility. I still believe that, but I also believe that at the level of conversation, at the level of philosophizing, don't waste your own time arguing over and over again with people that are demonstrating to you that they're not listening to you. Don't do that unless you actually enjoy it. Now, if it's a sport for you and you have fun trolling people or mocking people who disagree with you, oh man, have at it. That's quality of life right there. Have at it. But if
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
day is being ruined, your energy is being drained, and you're being distracted from other projects or from meaningful relationships because you're arguing with some dude on Twitter or because you're debating Tone Vays and he ain't listening. I mean, man, like go spend that time with your wife. You know what I mean? Like go spend that time working out. Go spend that time learning something new because there are a whole lot of people in the world who are not Tone Vay or Tone Vays. I don't know. There are a lot of people in the world who would be interested in what you have to say, and you're kind of depriving them of the opportunity to put something, you know, to engage you because you're wasting it with somebody that, you know. So anyway, I'm just a big proponent of like not allowing yourself to be distracted or drained by people who disagree. And it doesn't come from some kind of like Pollyanna do-gooder perspective that it's evil to be mean or to cut people off or any of that kind of stuff. I don't think that way. It's about self-interest, man. Like if you're not getting something valuable out of the discussion, why the hell are you in it? You know? Okay. How did I get into this? That's what you were asking me about.
Yeah, well, we'll just quickly just get on to that point that you were just making there. You know, when you're saying, you know, don't waste your time with these people, you know, you become who you hang around with. You know, I very much believe that. So, I mean, I would say I've got an extremely high caliber sort of set of friends. You know, I sometimes question why they hang around with me, but I'm just like, I mean, I've got massive respect for my friends. Yeah, I mean, they're all high flyers, like massive achievers. You know. But yeah, what if you are, you know, you get on, you've known your friends for like 10, 12, 15 years, you know, and then suddenly you're talking about Bitcoin, and one of your mates goes, doesn't 2 plus 2 equal 3? And then, you know, and then you look at him and you're like, what? Like, what?
Hey, so I have a real example of this, not hypothetical for me. So I've got a group of about like 5 close friends, like brothers.
Yeah,
Love
yeah,
these guys, right?
yeah.
And we have a whole bunch of things that we talk about. This isn't Steve, Derek, Isaac, different group of guys.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just like not even aware of this world or into this world at all. The things we talk about have nothing to do with this.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm so excited about it, and I believe it's so game changing. You know, I went to them and I like, you know, talked about all the ideas and everything like that, and their eyes were already glazing over. But you know, thankfully they were very gracious with me, and but they weren't really feeling what I was talking about. And I did this about a few times, and they were just polite but completely uninspired.
Yeah, yeah.
And at one point, I thought I had this brilliant idea. I was like, you know what? Okay, I'm never gonna get them to like study this or be interested in it, but at the very least, I can get them to download Handcash.
Yeah, yeah.
I can share some sats with them.
Yeah.
I can share with people in the BSV community. They can share some sats. They can at least feel how it works and at least maybe participate in the excitement of like, you know, watching the tech evolve.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, you know, I asked them to, you know, download Handcash and gave them the quick instructions on how to do it. And the first response I got was, nah, sounds like a scam to me. Right. And so and these are friends, man. Like these are friends that are like more than 10 years.
Yeah.
And I immediately came back and I was like, whoa. A scam by definition cannot be a situation where I ask nothing of you and I'm offering you my money.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
like
I'm trying to give you
I'm
money.
giving myself,
What kind of
oh,
scam is that?
right, I'm giving you away. I'm giving you some sats. There's no risk. If it goes all the way to zero,
Yeah, yeah.
you've lost nothing, right? I'm the loser here.
Yeah.
But they did not hear that, right? Now I did have a couple of them that were like, okay, man, since you're really bugging us and annoying us, I'll let you give me a couple of sats if you promise to shut up. It was kind of like that, right? But the others never did it. The others never did it.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember I was so frustrated with that, man. I was like, ah, I was
Yeah,
so mad.
yeah.
But at the same time, it's like I still, the conversations I have with these guys about movies and basketball are still some of the best conversations I have in the world. And they are perhaps more entertaining to me than any conversations I have with people that are in Bitcoin. And I'm not letting those guys go. I'm not letting them out. I'm too selfish with my friendships. I'm friends with people not because of some objective list of do's and don'ts that tells me to be friends because it's the moral thing to do. I'm friends with people because I get value out of those relationships. And the conversations we have about everything in life that is not Bitcoin is so fun, so funny, so entertaining. There's no way in hell I'm letting those guys go just because they don't see eye to eye with me on Bitcoin. In fact, one of those guys came to me because he got so tired of me talking about it. He said to me, hey, man, he goes, I would appreciate if you stop bringing this up and we can find other things to talk about. You know that I love you. You know that I got your back, but I'm not interested in this stuff. So let's just kill it. And that was a moment of maturation for me. I had to respect that. I mean, what else do you want? What else can you ask for? You can't demand that everybody in life be interested in what you're interested in and be turned on by what you're turned on by. In fact, if people were, there would really be no need for you. What does it mean to be unique? What does it mean to have something to offer to this world if it doesn't mean you have a capacity to see things that others don't see, or to recognize the value in places before everyone else recognizes that value? That's part of the fun of life. You kind of erase your power, your significance, your uniqueness if what's obvious to you becomes obvious to others. So you got to cope with that, and you just gotta let some of that go. Now, I do believe that at some point in the future, those guys are gonna come back and be like, "Hey, man, remember that?"
Yeah. I'm looking forward to that day already.
And that might be a real fun moment for me, right? Like I may choose to have a little fun with that moment. But until then, you don't let it distract you from the bigger picture in life. You know, I'm not gonna let myself lose sleep over that, because then that would make me less valuable in the places where I'm needed.
Yeah, that's really good. So how did you find BSV? Because I mean, if like I said, if your friends were initially in BTC and BCH, I mean it takes. I mean I would say from personal experience, the people that I have met in BSV have just been absolutely phenomenal. You know, they are independent, intelligent thinkers, and you can tell that they've ended up in the space because they've taken the time to think about it and put the pieces of the jigsaw together. And they're like, yeah, you know what? It's BSV, and it's refreshing meeting these people. I mean, this is why I'm really keen to build relationships in the space now before all the Moon Lambo boys come in, because that's what's going to happen. You know, and they'll take when Moon Lambo boys come in, it's going to be all about price. But I mean, fair enough. I'm happy for them to take over, because then the foundation work has been done, and then it is about price, and they're all going to be popping champagne. Oh, and I bought in this. It's like, yeah, mate, well done. You know, you haven't been through the wars like me, but they're going to be blowing the trumpets and basically sort of like picking up where I've left off. Yeah, they're not going to have any technical details of it, but it won't be needed by then anymore, because the price will just be absolutely flying. Like 10 grand, 20 grand, 30 grand, 50 grand, 100 grand, a million. Do you know what I mean? They're all going to be, singing the praises, getting everybody else involved. But they won't need the technical know-how or the education at that point, because it will be sorted and done and dusted with. So
yeah, and for me, I don't want to be one of those guys. Like, I don't want to be one of those guys for whom the only benefit of getting in early is number go up. And don't get me wrong, I'm not above that. That's a great benefit, right? Like, if you believe you have the right unit of account to save in, I think it would be irrational not to, right? I don't believe in hodling as the Ponzi schemers practice it, but I believe in savings, right? And I think if you believe BSV is a more valuable unit of account than, or a long-term unit of account compared with like fiat, then what's the case for not saving in that if you're going to save at all, if you're going to put money away for the future? So I don't want to be one of those people who just benefits though from number go up. I want to be someone who benefits from taking the time before all of that transpires to understand the philosophy and the economics and the technology that undergirds the system, because I believe there's a lot of fun in that. There's a lot of interesting discussions you get to be a part of, and I believe that you get to create value for the world in some ways that can only come from building your skills, from acquiring knowledge. So I'm not just sitting back hoping that Bitcoin grows. I want to grow with Bitcoin, and I want to try to make sure I grow fast enough so that before it becomes mainstream and everybody and their mom is talking about it, I actually am a player in the game at a level that's actually influencing people and creating value for them. Hey, another thing, in response to something that you said earlier, I do want to make a distinction between the ability to think critically about where value is and the political games that we play in order to survive. And I think there are a lot of people who are not in the BSV community who are really sharp, and they can think critically about where the value is, and they know a lot more than they're letting on. But in terms of the political games that they play in order to survive, they're not going to let that cat out of the bag. So I'll use a biblical analogy, and I think I shared this with in one of the conversations I had with Steve, Derek, and Isaac, where in the Bible you had the story of Nicodemus, who was like a man of great prestige. And he came to visit Jesus at night because he heard rumors of this wise man that was, offering all of these liberating teachings. And he came to visit Jesus at night because he knew that if anybody had seen him talking to Jesus in public, that they would bash him and that he might lose his clout and his position, right? So here's the guy who's playing a political game that requires him to distance himself socially from Jesus. But at the same time, he's thinking critically enough to know that this guy that people think is crazy has something that I should listen to and learn from. And so he studies in secret, so to speak. And I believe there are people like that in BSV. And I think it would be naive and intellectually dishonest of us to pretend like there isn't any social risk in associating yourself with BSV. I mean, look at the way Gavin went from being universally respected,
Gavin and Jason,
right, to being totally bashed and stuff like that because of what he came out and said about Craig Wright. So I would say don't be deceived by appearances. Throughout all of human history, in every generation, there have been people who publicly talked a lot of smack about something while privately studied the hell out of it to figure out how they can benefit from it themselves. There are a lot of people who say, hey, nothing to see here, guys, just a scam. But when your back is turned and when the lights are out, they're like, all right, let's read that. Let's listen to this. What do you guys think of that? They're having conversations about it. There are more people who know about this than they're letting on. There are more people who believe in it than are letting on.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, there has to be people looking at this right now. They can't not be. They'd be crazy not to. Yeah, but it's funny you should mention Gavin Andresen there, because he is one chap that I would desperately love to get on this show. I really, really want to interview him just to get his story. Yeah, because I mean, we've all heard what happened to him, but it's going to be completely different actually hearing it from the horse's mouth. I mean, I remember seeing an interview where, like a panel discussion, where he was on stage and he was sat next to one Meg Greg, and Gavin was putting his point across, and he said, retailers are saying, look, the fees are killing us. We can't use this at the moment. And Greg Maxwell said, oh, I don't believe that. And I was just like, hold on a minute. This is not something, whether or not you believe or not, he is stating a fact. He is telling you the retailers are telling him that the fees are killing them. You know, this is not a case of, well, I don't believe that. I mean, I just thought to myself, you know what? He has been absolutely railroaded. Absolutely railroaded. But, I mean, this is one of the things why, this is one of the reasons why I called this show Bitcoin Original Gangster. Because I'm not taking any of that stuff, mate. You know, I'm literally gonna shoot from the hip, you know, and tell them about SegWit, and you know, just tell them what they need to know. You know, so this is why I'm sort of inviting, when I get other people who are sort of, you know, less knowledgeable on the show, or, you know, happy to debate people as well. Like, I'm not going to be patting on the back if I think they're wrong. I'm going to explain to them why they're wrong and why they're saying is factually incorrect and why it doesn't work. You know, it's going to hurt a few people, but, you know, no pain, no gain.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I don't endorse this philosophy that says, oh, you need to tiptoe around, you know, hey, that's the right answer to a different question. Nah, man, like, it's wrong. That's BS, right?
Yeah,
That's completely bonkers. That's completely off. I definitely believe that we have to have courage and just be honest, and tough love is a thing. We're not doing anybody any favors by pretending that all ideas are equal. Even the person who says all ideas are equal, they're presupposing that the idea that all ideas are equal is superior to the idea that some ideas are better than others. Nobody really believes that all ideas are equal. We know better than that. That's pure foolishness. It's idiocy. It's dangerous thinking. And we ought to protect ourselves from it by arming ourselves with the truth. But what I would add to it, I would say be selfish enough when you're debating people to make sure you are learning from your opponents how to more effectively undermine their assumptions. I think every time someone says, I disagree with you, it's a wasted opportunity when we don't say, tell me why. What's the logic behind why you think that way? Right? Like, tell me why. I mean, you see this a lot with Craig Wright. Like, if you mention his name, it's like walking into a church and saying "Hail Satan," right? If you mention his name, people get triggered and they're like, "Oh, this guy's a scam," and you can shout back at them. But the most interesting things I've learned about him have come from me saying, "Why do you think that way?" And man, it's like it's sort of like in sales. If you offer a product, right? I'm trying to sell you this phone, and you say like, you say I don't want to buy. And I say, tell me why. Tell me what's holding you back. Do you think this is just completely valueless? Is it a money problem? What is it? And they say, well, your phone costs $200 and I only have 20. Okay, you just gave me instructions on what I need to do to sell you. If I come up with if I can come up with a feasible payment plan that spreads out over 12 months, would that change things for you? Yes, it would, right? So don't assume that every objection is coming from a place of stubbornness or intellectual dishonesty. Maybe it is, but base your conclusion on the empirical data of how they respond to your question why. Because some people, when you ask them, why do you think that way, they'll actually express a legitimate concern that you might have the ability to resolve. Or they might just reveal themselves to be a total jerk, at which point you can just keep it moving.
Yeah. Did you remember there was a quote that went online that Peter McCormack put out once that just said, you know, like, what effing idiot is using the blockchain to sell concert tickets when we have a perfectly good monetary system in the form of credit cards that can do that for us? And he was complaining about somebody using the blockchain because other people couldn't use it to make their transactions on it. I mean, literally, like, I was pissing myself laughing. But I mean, initially I was just like, surely he didn't say that. Surely, like, nobody could be that stupid. But like, I actually asked him directly. I was like, mate, did he say that? And he's like, yeah. So tell us your story. I mean, how did you find BSV after your friends initially got you into crypto and that weren't in BSV? How did you find it?
Yeah, so Isaac, Steve, and Derek have been talking about Bitcoin for years, long before the fork. In addition to that, Jeffrey Tucker is one of those guys that I know personally who's been talking about Bitcoin long before the first BTC BCH hard fork. Naomi Brockwell as well. These are people that I know or that I've met, that I've interacted with, and the conversations were happening around me And, you know, I listen, I eavesdropped, you know, like I bookmarked things in my mind. But I didn't like dig into the research. And at this time, it was just BTC, right? That's when I initially started hearing about things, you know. So sometimes I would go out and I would speak at different events. And if I'm at conferences that are focused on things like libertarianism or Austrian school economics or anarchy or whatever it may be, Bitcoin was always one of those things that the kids would ask about. And I never really knew what they were talking about, but it was on my radar. It's like, this is something that I got to look into. And this was pre-blockchain hype, pre-fork. But I never just dug into it really deeply. And so when the peak of, like, I think it was 2017 now happened, where Bitcoin, you know, reached near $20,000. When the debate started heating up with BCH about the block size, when all that started going down, just like everybody else, it popped on my radar, and it made me go, whoa, was this the thing everybody was talking about? You know, I'm not every was this the thing that my friends and my colleagues and my coworkers and my students were talking about? Everybody's talking about this on mainstream, like, whoa. And I remember being kind of like mad at myself that, you know, I had a freaking copy of Steve Patterson's what's the big deal about Bitcoin on my shelf and just didn't read it. You know what I mean? I got all these different articles that people have sent me and didn't read it. You know, working with Jeffrey Tucker at the time, and it's like he's just talking about this all the time, and I just wasn't really paying attention. I was kind of disappointed in myself. I was kind of mad because I felt like, darn it, if I had just buckled down and studied that and listened to those conversations, I'd probably be rich right now because I could have got in a lot earlier. And I was definitely thinking, no doubt about it. I was just thinking about it in terms of like number go up. Like I missed out on an opportunity to cash in on a number go up opportunity.
Oh, mate, and, just quickly there, I need to say a little bit of my story. So my mother tried to engage me in a conversation about Bitcoin because she was reading the newspaper and told me that this thing called Bitcoin, everybody was getting really excited about it because it had nearly hit $1. And I was like, yeah. And that was it for, you know, nearly 9 years. You know, next time I looked at it, it was like, you know what, like $600-700. You know, so yeah, I know where you're coming from.
Yeah. So something like that's a good wake up call, man. But you know, like any form of love, the initial reasons for attraction might be superficial and outwardly, but once you get to know the object of your affection, the reasons get a little deeper. You start to realize there is more here than how hot you looked from far away. There's more value here than the initial glitz and glam that caught my attention. And you know, I started to look into it and read up on it a little bit more. I wasn't as obsessed as I am now. And you know, so the most interesting discussions about Bitcoin were really happening then because you had the big block, small block debate going on. And so there was everything from fascinating conspiracy theories with the whole blockstream theme to Mike Hearn and Gavin's writings on why the block size needs to be raised, debates about what Satoshi really meant. And so I was kind of hovering around some of that stuff, but I also still had this number go up mentality. And at this time, you got the ICO craze, you've got the blockchain hype, and all of these other little coins coming in. And like so many other noobs, I was thinking, oh, what's the next Bitcoin? What's the next big thing, right? What's the next thing you can buy for $1 that's going to go up, you know, 10x, 100x, or whatever? And so I spent a little bit more time reading a bunch of like ICO white papers and studying up on a bunch of altcoins. I got attracted to a lot of the projects that were going on on Ethereum. I was interested in Sia Coin and what they were doing on the data storage side. I was interested in Sonam and the promises they were making about fog computing. I was interested in GVT and the things they were trying to do with asset management. And so I still had this part of me that was intrigued by people that seemed to offer a real use case, that seemed to be trying to solve a real world problem. I was getting excited about blockchain projects, but I had the tokenomics all wrong, and I didn't understand yet that the only reason we had all of these, different blockchains was because of misinformation about the true nature of Bitcoin.
Mm.
That Bitcoin is really a system that can do it all.
Yep.
And only because this system was artificially crippled and misinformation was spread about it, did it become necessary, quote unquote, for people to do all of these other chains and try all these other things.
How did you find that out?
There were a few different things. One thing that had a big influence is, I read Daniel Krawitz's 2 articles on altcoins being a scam.
Oh yeah.
That kind of sowed the seeds of thinking. I didn't quite get it at first, but I was like, what? He's being really uncharitable by saying that. That was my initial thought. Man, like, why does he got to call him a scam? Maybe some of these people sincerely believe it. I was caught up on that.
Yeah.
But then I actually saw some things in the altcoin space that confirmed what he said. So
like what?
Hacken. So Hacken, HKN was one of the projects that I was really interested in with and one of the things they did was, which is what Krawitz predicted. They were like, hey, in order to increase revenue, we're going to make this available to this, suite of coins, right? Now accepting BTC and Ethereum and USD. And it's kind of like, oh, their token became useless. Same thing with Ethereum Lend. They made that switch. Hey, now accepting Ethereum and BTC and this and that. And it's like, you see their token become useless. Or like you see like Lunar, the team just disappears. Wait, what happened to you guys? Where'd you go? Or you see Sonam, like, hey, what happened? Where'd you guys go?
Yeah.
And all of these things that critics of the tokenomics of altcoins were saying started to become true. And it made me realize, man, something is wrong at a fundamental level here.
Yeah.
And that's when I really took a look at what is going on with this ICO model. Why are they saying it's wrong? And once I came to understand that, like, I got out of that game hard. I got out of that game really hard. And I realized that it's just a completely futile game. But because I was interested in the applications of blockchain that went beyond peer-to-peer cash, as I'm pulling out of that game, now we've progressed further enough to where the BSV BCH debate is happening. And from the moment that debate happens, like, BSV seemed infinitely more exciting to me because BSV was the only community that understood the one small thing that I was right about in my attraction to all these altcoins. And that is that Bitcoin is to quote Andreas Antonopoulos, Bitcoin is not just money for the internet, it's the internet for money, and money is just the first app.
Yeah.
But there's so much more that we can do with this. And I thought what I would see was a whole bunch of other people competing with BSV saying we can do it better. But what shocked me was that everyone was laughing at BSV for saying it can be done at all. What shocked me was the BCH community dismissing this focus on the metanet and data storage and plumbing for the internet as being like spammy or superficial or secondary or silly, and BTC just being like, oh, you're gonna wreck yourself, it's not possible. And I was like, holy smokes, nobody even gets it. And I'll wrap this up here. I read Unwriters, the resolution of the Bitcoin Cash experiment. Then I just started reading up on some of the stuff about the internet, started reading some of the stuff about Craig Wright's writing. But one of the biggest things for me was I started DMing people in the space. And the people
when was that? Was that about the time you followed me? Was that like November last year?
Earlier than that.
Ah.
Because this was immediately, this was immediately after the hard fork.
Oh, the hash war.
Yeah, BSV and BCH. Immediately after that.
Right. So
when that split occurred, I started just sending messages to people that were, the BCH people that I knew of, right? Some of whom went the BSV side, some of whom stayed in the BCH ABC side. And the people in SV were really responsive.
Yeah.
They seemed really informed. They were really excited to answer questions. None of them were like, "You're stupid for asking this." They were all like, "Read this, read this, read that." Every single one of them would give an answer to my question, but they would also give me a bunch of stuff to go read and listen to get caught up. And once that started happening, man, I was just off and running, and I'm still off and running. I'm still asking a lot of questions and trying to learn a lot of things, but you know, it at least brought me to the conclusion that in a world where there are a lot of different places you can put your money, a lot of different things that you can invest in and support, in a world where there's more to life than crypto, if you're going to get behind something, you want to get behind something that's actually trying to do something
Yeah.
that's unique enough to make a difference, to be interesting, and to be ambitious. And for me, BSV is the only thing out there which, if it wins, actually makes a difference by its winning. Everything else to me seems like it's nothing more than a perpetuation of the same old world that we have always known. There's nothing about winning in those other systems that excites me enough to even want to spend my time, focusing on it. BSV is really exciting, and what it's trying to do is so aggressive, so amazing,
Yeah.
so audacious, so ambitious, that I don't even know how you can not be excited about it. And,
Yeah.
and, and, I, and I think the
How
mechanism
can
is
you
in
not
place.
know that 2 + 2 doesn't equal 4?
Hey, but you know what, man? I'm a lot more sympathetic to that, because if you're someone who has not been exposed to this world, like let's do a thought experiment. Let's say pick somebody in your family or somebody who doesn't live their life in this space, and you said, "Hey, I want you to look into Bitcoin," and you didn't have the luxury of like breathing down their neck to like save them from error and direct them to the right sources. What are they going to see when they Google Craig Wright scam, BSV scam?
Yeah.
Right? Like mainstream media has lied before, has provided disinformation before, and the mainstream narrative about BSV right now presents a formidable intellectual hurdle that people have to overcome in
Yeah.
order to believe it. Even if you talk with somebody for an hour, they're going to walk away from their conversation with you and talk to like 5 wealthy, successful people they respect who are going to completely undermine what you just said. And that's going to be hard to overcome, you know? So it's not easy. I don't want to make light of it. It isn't because I think it's a mean thing to do, but I'm slow to make fun of people who don't see what I see, know what I know, or get what I get, because I guess I just strongly identify with the guy who has believed stupid things in the past, has missed out on obvious truths in the past,
Yeah.
and who needed to have things explained to him 25 times before he finally got it, even though everybody in the room was annoyed with him. I know what it's like to be that guy. That's who I am. And if anything, I consider myself lucky to maybe be surrounded by people that have been able to kind of inform me and yeah.
Yeah, that's a really great story. I mean, to be honest with you, I think anybody who watches this is really going to resonate and identify very closely with what you've just said. Yeah, you've expressed it very well. Yeah. In fact, you know what? I mean, for a first episode, mate, I think this has been absolutely epic. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to put this out on Streamanity first. Well, actually, I'm quite excited about it anyway. Sorry, I might just go straight to YouTube anyway, and just let everybody watch it. So yeah. On that note, I really want to thank you for joining me on the show.
Hey man, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it. This was fun. Yeah, this was awesome, man. It's going to be really cool to see what kinds of conversations we're having 6 months from now,
Oof, 3
1
months
year
from
from
now.
now, 5 years from now. But we're in the middle of some very interesting times, and it's going to be really cool to see how it all unfolds, man.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? I mean, on this channel, I would like to get sort of like the OGs together, where we are actually helping helping the crypto vulnerable people to understand better with their questions. So I'm looking forward to the day where we actually get someone like Tony Vase on the show, because like you said, it's going to be quite shocking. Listen to what he has to say, and he'd be like, wow, how can you think that? Why do you think that? How on earth did you come to that crazy conclusion?
Here's an example that I used before in the conversation with the guys. It's like, think about discussions on politics. When someone says, let's say someone says something like, I disagree with minimum wage laws, or I'm against public school, or something like that. The knee-jerk reaction to someone that adopts that position is, oh, you don't care about the poor, or you're racist and you hate black people. And the problem with that, even if that's how you genuinely feel, is that you've just made it highly unlikely that there's going to be any further discussion on the topic. Once you take it to that level of calling someone dishonest or racist or whatever it may be for what they believe, like, you should be mentally prepared to just end it there. And I'm not saying that it's never appropriate to tell somebody the truth about what you think they are, but there's no expiration date on that. Like, if I think you're a racist, I can still call you that in 30 seconds. I don't have to get that out of my mouth right now. I'll still have that opportunity 2 minutes later. What I want to know before my tendency to call you, slap a label on you, what I want to know before I do that is, what makes you think that was a reasonable thing to say? Right? What is the basis for why you expressed yourself in that way? Because I have something to learn too, and it's possible that you might say something that surprises me. It's possible that I haven't figured out all the dynamics of belief formation. It's possible that I don't have a clear read on everybody who disagrees with me and thinks differently from me. And so it's important that even when I'm in a position where I think I'm the teacher, that I understand that I must also be the student of those whom I wish to teach, if I really want to enlighten them. Because at a foundational level, to teach is to allow a student to enlighten you about how to teach them. So you got to be a student first, man. And I think too many discussions never happen. Too many debates never happen because we don't know how to get cordial. And here's the most interesting thing about it to me. I think it's easy to kind of dismiss what I'm saying as like some kind of soft philosophy, but I actually think it's the opposite, because when you slap labels on people, you actually let them off the hook. So for instance, if I reach out to Tone Vase and I say, hey, come on my show, man, so I can expose your idiocy, tell people how big of a fool you are, what do you think the likelihood is that dude's even going to show up and put himself in that position?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So I get the emotional fulfillment of looking like a badass in front of my friends. I get the emotional fulfillment of being like, shut up, fool, or we're talking some smack. But like, that dude's never going to have a conversation with me. But what if I say to him like, hey, man, I disagree with just about everything that you said, but I want to try to understand your position a little bit more. And I love to have a debate and see what your response would be to some of the arguments I have against your position. Would you like to have that conversation? By the way, I think this is a lesson that we can adopt from what I think a part of Craig Wright's strategy is. There are advantages that come from appearing to be less dangerous than you are. Sometimes when you are too strong, you scare people away from the fight. If you think about the way that MMA fighters and boxers promote their events, they have this delicate balance between two things. One, they talk enough trash to sell the fight. Like you got to have something about you that's fiery and potentially polemic if you want to make people interested. I get that. That's that truth element. That's that boldness element. But then there's a second thing that all the fighters have. They say enough to convince you that it's possible for them to lose. They say enough to make you think, man, this guy, you know, is really interesting, but he might lose the debate. Every time someone shows up to a Conor McGregor fight, it's because they're kind of hoping he'll lose too.
Yeah.
You know, they heard him talk a lot of trash, but they also heard a couple of things that convinces them that it's possible that the other guy could pull this thing off. And you need both of those elements to sell a fight. If the other party believed that it's a sure thing that you're going to demolish them, I can guarantee you they're never showing up to that debate, because no one is a big enough fool to ever put themselves in a situation where they feel like it's guaranteed that they're going to be demolished. So don't let people off the hook by scaring them away. Like, get them on the platform. Have your fight not outside the ring, but say enough to get them to get in the ring with you. But don't say too much, so, you know, to the point where you lose your chance to fight for the title. Do what you got to do to get them in the ring. When you get them in the ring, then you can destroy them. But get them in the ring first.
Yeah, that's a really good analogy. I'll probably apply that to trying to get these other people on the show. But you know what you were saying there.
That's my advice.
Yeah, thanks for that. You know, when I'll just tell you something that I experienced when there was the BCH BSV hash war. I could understand the difference in the ideologies. I was just like, you've got these other criminal libertarians who are just like, look, we want this for dealing drugs, and like all the abhorrent just outrageous things that criminals get up to. That's what we want to do because we feel as though we feel as though we've got the right to be able to do these things. And then there's the other side, is just actually you shouldn't be able to do things that harm society. And you can. Nobody's gonna stop your transaction if that transaction is for a commercial legitimate business. If you're doing something that is harming a third party like children, then of course people are going to try and shut you down. Why on earth would you want a system that that allows that kind of thing? So I mean it was kind of obvious what the split was, but I didn't understand why BTCers were still stuck over in BTC. I was just like, what are these people on? What's their modus operandi? And so I got myself into one of the, I think it was a whale speak group, just to find out what they'd been told. And their narrative was quite fascinating, actually. So they were saying, right, we want censorship-resistant money, and that's the most important thing. And so what they were told is that they were just like, right, in order to be censorship-resistant, the blockchain has to be as distributed as possible, and it can't be as distributed as possible if it ends up in large data centers, which it will do if it's used as worldwide money. So they were so they'd been told that it's not good to for it to be in a smaller number of larger data centers as it grows in order to hold the blockchain on. We want it on lots of little Raspberry Pis, and we want it on everybody's computers so that it's censorship resistant money. But then I was just like, well, if you're just keeping it on all these little Raspberry Pis and on your computers, it can't scale for the world to use. And if the world can't use it, it's not going to be money. So then I realized that they'd basically been sold this utopian ideology of like, you can do what you want and nobody can take it down. But blindsided to the fact that what's the point in having something that nobody can take down if nobody's going to use it?
Yeah, you saw this in the debate with Brendan Lee, and I forget the guy's name.
I think his name was Guy something or other.
Yeah, but he really pushed that narrative, right? Every time Brendan tried to make the case that but you're making it unusable. His comeback was, what's the point of having money if it's not censorship resistant? We already have money that isn't censorship resistant, right? We already have that in the form of fiat currency, but decentralization first. And even if that creates a whole bunch of problems, we've got to protect decentralization at all costs. And then we can figure out how to make the money part work, even if it takes us another 20 years, which allows them to perpetuate this narrative about Lightning Network just another 18 months. But part of my problem with this isn't just that it makes money unworkable by keeping the block size small, but it's also but it also does so for reasons that aren't even true.
Yeah.
Right. So it would be one thing if if BTC truly could deliver this decentralized, censorship resistant system, and they're just kind of waiting to figure out the hard problem of how we do cash too. But that's not what's actually happening. They can't even deliver on that promise. The system isn't truly decentralized in the way they talk about it. It's all based on equivocating what it means to run a node. You know, my idea of these nodes that they place so much faith in, these nodes that that are supposed to make everybody feel like they're a part of the team when they're really not. It's kind of like this scene in the comedy Friday. There's this bully, right? This bully named Devo. This big dude that could just beat anybody up. He walks up to this one dude and basically is like, you know, threatens to take his bike. He's like, "Give me your bike." and the guy's like, you know, just sort of like, you know, all scared of him and whatnot. And like everybody's afraid of Devo because he's got all this power. And Devo like knocks this guy out, and the guy just like falls on the ground, and everybody's like scared. And there's this one nerdy character who sees it from far away, and he starts running, and he runs up to the bully, and he's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And the bully turns and looks at him and gives him that stare that reminds him of where the power really is. And the nerd goes, "Oh, never mind," and he runs in the opposite direction. Those are the BTC nodes. The people who sit back from afar and watch the people who actually have power exercise their power. And even if they did see something wrong happen, they will realize very quickly that they have no ability whatsoever to do anything about it. Because at the end of the day, the miners are like Devo. They're the only ones that have power. These little other nodes that prop up this myth of decentralization, they're just the little nerds that look from far away, but don't really have any power. They can scream, they can wag their little finger, but they don't actually control anything.
Yeah, that's really good. You know, I hope a lot of BTCers get to see this. You know, I mean, I would really love for this conversation that we've had to actually, you know, provoke some BTCers and BCHers, because from our conversation that we've been having, yeah, I mean, obviously maybe we're a little bit biased, but I can totally rationalize and reason everything that you have just said. You know, so therefore I'm curious, like, how can anybody else not? You know, hopefully the world will see Bitcoin for what it was meant to be, you know, sooner rather than later. I mean, I know they're going to see it anyway, but it kind of worries me knowing that these people are believing this BS that is being fed to them, and they are going to get wrecked. They are going to get absolutely wrecked, and it worries me because I got wrecked, you know, and I've written a book on my experiences. So it's kind of like I'm almost like in a little bit of a panic saying, look, you need to know this. You need to know this, and you need to understand it, because what happened to me is going to happen to you if you don't, you know.
You ever seen the John Carpenter film, They Live, Rowdy Rod Piper?
No, I don't think I've seen that one.
It's an 80s sci-fi film that you should check it out. It's a fun movie.
What's it called again?
They Live.
They Live.
And it's a film about basically aliens have invaded the Earth, but without anybody knowing that it's an invasion, because they have the ability to manipulate the frequencies that control how people perceive reality. And so they appear to be humans. And so the aliens live among us. They live and they walk, work, live among us. And the main character, he finds like this box of shades that's outside of like this secret meeting where like these conspiracy theorists congregate. And when he puts on the shades, something really interesting happens. He sees an entirely different reality through those shades. So for instance, let's say you look at a billboard and the billboard says like, cigarettes, or the billboard has like the picture of a model on it or a family selling toothpaste. With the shades on, it'll say obey. You know, it'll say something like blindly trust authority, consume, whatever it may be, some subliminal message. And he takes the shades off And it's like, oh, just a basketball player on a magazine. He puts the shades back on, consume, obey, takes it off, sees the, that whole thing. And so he realizes that these shades give him the ability to see the true nature of reality. And he becomes paranoid and he becomes passionate. Something's got to be done, man. We've got to do something about it. And so what's his initial reaction? He does the same thing that probably any of us would do if we had those shades. He goes up to his best friend and tells his best friend this absolutely crazy sounding story about a world that's been invaded by aliens. And how if you just put on the shades, you'll see, right? Because when you put on the shades, that guy over there that looks like a human is really like a grotesque looking alien. And of course his friend thinks he's crazy. Of course he does. And he says, well, just put on the shades and you'll see what I see. It's really simple, right? Yeah. And the friend's like, nah, man, I'm not wasting my time with that stupid nonsense. I'm not about to put on those stupid shades. And he's like, dude, put on the shades. Nah, man, I'm not putting on those shades. And the guys fight about it, man. They fight for like 10 minutes. They get into a physical fist fight because the dude is trying to force the shades on his friend. And his buddy's like, I'm not putting on those shades. And I'm punching you in the face if you try to force them on me. And he never succeeds at getting the shades on his buddy. He's bloody, he's bruised. He tried to do everything through force and he never succeeded. And there's one point where he realizes there's only one way I'm going to really change the world and help people see reality. I've got to put on the shades in my own life. And I have to look at the world in the way that these shades allow me to see. And I've got to figure out how I can act on this information creatively so I can build things that make the truth more obvious. Because people aren't going to see what I see through the shades. They're going to see what I see based on what I build as a result of being inspired by this vision that I have. And I don't want to spoil the movie. Does he succeed? Does he fail? Go watch the movie. And I think you'll see a profound illustration of what we got to do to change the world. But I think that's a good analogy for this kind of stuff. Maybe some people will put on the shades. Maybe some people will believe your crazy sounding story about aliens that have invaded the earth. But don't be naive, right? Most people are going to dismiss that story as crazy. Most people see that as silly. There's a reason why this hasn't been mainstream adopted yet. And you can spend all your time getting into fights with people and being mad at them and getting bruised up because they won't put on the shades. Or you can say, screw it. I'm going to stop talking to this dude. He's a waste of my time. I'm going to put on the shades. I got the vision. I know what I see, and I'm going to act accordingly, and I'm going to create something. Back to my earlier statement, I may not be able to change the way I may not be able to change the way people see the world, but I can change the world that they see. And when I change the world that they see, they will act accordingly.
Oh, fantastic advice. And would you before we wrap this up, I mean, this conversation has been absolutely fantastic. Would you like to tell everybody the name of your business and how they can get in contact with you?
Yeah, if you want to check me out, so I'm the director of entrepreneurial education for the Foundation for Economic Education. I have a project called Revolution of One. It's a podcast that I host. Also, a lot of media content I produce, a lot of articles that I write, and it's all about how to live more freely and fully in your own life. It's all about how to create a freer society by being a freer person at the individual level. You can check that out at fee.org/rev1. You can follow me on social media. On Instagram, I'm official T.K Coleman. On Twitter, I'm TK_Coleman.
Brilliant. Fantastic. Well, I know this is the first time we've ever had a conversation. So, I want to really thank you for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure meeting you, TK. So, hopefully we'll collaborate in the future and, rock and roll over these next few months.
Yeah, man, it's been fun. I appreciate you having me on, and it's good to be part of the inaugural episode.
Yeah, this is it. Do you know, I reckon this is going to be really good. I thought to myself, you know what? I want to make this big, because I know, you know as well, because we can see what's coming. We know what's going to happen with BSV. It is going to be absolutely massive. So, mate, I think you're going to be world famous after this.
Yeah, man. Well, let's hope we're able to, get through these times. We got a a lot of very interesting things of great economic import happening in our world right now. And if anything, I think it's a lesson on how important it is to avoid the distractions and to build and to fight for truth, because a lot of the things that we see could have been at least mitigated by having a system of sound money in place. And if anything, it's an indictment against how much time has been wasted through misinformation and distraction in the blockchain space. But all in all, I'm happy to see that Satoshi's vision has returned. I'm happy to see that Bitcoin has found its way, and that what was originally intended and designed has a chance to live, and that the momentum seems to be in that direction. So I'm excited. These are crazy times, but exciting times as well.
Yeah, and just on a final note, do you have you got any questions for me on my articles and stuff? Any questions that you're still pondering over?
Man, there's a whole lot we could talk about, but yeah. So maybe I'll throw two at you.
Go for it.
One would be, I'd love to hear your thoughts on some of the arguments that are being made. You know, Ari is one person that's making this argument that now that miners in BSV will be able to contract in fiat, it puts less pressure on BSV to, for number to go up in order for the blockchain to thrive, in order for us to get the transaction volume and transaction fees that miners need to be incentivized to secure the system. Which to me is exciting, because unlike BTC, there's no pressure for this to like get to $10,000 by a certain amount of time in order to succeed. I'd love to know your thoughts on that. I know that doesn't gratify people that are looking for number to go up, but that number go up stuff don't matter if it doesn't win. And this seems to be a way for BSV to win. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. And secondly, I'd just love to hear any thoughts that you have about the times that we're in. If you think BSV is ready to seize the day in terms of bringing solutions, or you think we're a long way from being properly positioned.
Yeah. Okay. Well, first question with regard to the miners, I think it's a good thing in the fact that we are now no longer reliant on number go up. But it just means that the system is now more free, which ironically will actually probably make number go up even further. So that's my take on that thing. In terms of what's going to happen, and
that'd be an interesting debate to have, by the way. That'd be an interesting BSV debate to have. Because not everybody agrees with that. I don't fully understand the arguments, but I love to hear a discussion on that. But yeah, continue. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, it just means that number doesn't have to go up, but but because of that, it probably will. But then in terms of what's going to happen, so I would say it's. I give the metaphoric example of literally like a dam bursting. Like people seem to think, it's going to be a little stream first and then slowly, nicely. It is not going to be like that. It is literally, you've got this, like the Hoover Dam with all this water behind it, and people are thinking, it might just, it's going to have a little crack in it, and that crack will take a long, years and years for it to really break through. Nah, that's not the way it works. There's a crack that shows because there's a weakness in it, and then that weakness gets even, compounds even faster because it's already structurally weak, and then the dam literally just bursts. That is what's gonna happen to BSV, because you have to look at the value proposition that it offers. So not only huge corporations want two things: they want to save money and they want to make money. And that is what Bitcoin BSV does for corporations. I've described it as it's going to be like corporate cocaine. When corporations see how much efficiencies they can save on not only data storage but data sharing and record sharing, and the fact that businesses are absolutely paranoid about their data, because data is no longer kept on a piece of paper and stored in a filing cabinet. Everything is stored digitally. Yeah, so therefore, if a huge corporation loses digital data like a customer record, they can be sued, they can be fined, they can be publicly humiliated. Their customers will lose confidence, the share price will drop, heads will roll. They are absolutely paranoid about keeping their data safe, which is why they not only store it on their own systems that are centralized, they then spread the risk by storing it on other servers, and then you're using services like Amazon Web Services and Microsoft Cloud, and you're storing it in as many places as they can. But then that's very wasteful. Then they're spending huge amounts on virus software, cybersecurity, staff, upkeep, maintenance, you name it. Now, all of that can be completely written off, and they can just put it all on the blockchain. Everything on the blockchain. And it's accessible because you own that data. It's not like oh, well, there's too much data on it. We can't send it to you via the internet because there's too much of it. Now you can share it all online. The data efficiencies that Bitcoin offers are absolutely massive. So that's the first thing they're going to look at. And then not only are the data efficiencies massive, suddenly this now becomes a medium of exchange that is increasing in value. It's absolutely massive. Absolutely massive. Yeah, so it is not going to be like a nice little gentle ride up a hill. This thing is literally going to blast off. It is going to be the greatest and biggest bull run in history. The world won't even understand what's gone on. It's almost going to be, I think people are going to be a bit like my parents. And my parents are from the UK and they live near London. And the people in London had never experienced the boom in house prices. Like they had in the sort of 1970s and 1980s. Everybody was going, oh, crikey, the house prices can't go up any further. Who can afford this? This is crazy. And just up and up and up and up and up. They never imagined that, the house that they bought, sort of like almost like 40 years ago now is 20x'd, which is what it has done. They're relatively simple people with simple, modest jobs. But then I'm sort of growing up and I'm saying to my parents, look, because I always assumed that I would live in a similar house to the house that I grew up in that my parents have got, and yet when I'm suddenly realizing how much it is, I'm sort of, when I was younger, I was asking my parents, like, how am I meant to afford something like this? I always thought I was going to sort of live in the same area, but I can't afford this. And my parents would just look at me with a blank look on their face and just go, well, we can't afford this now. We don't know how this has happened. And this is what it's going to be like for people that don't get involved in Bitcoin. They're going to be, how could I miss this? How come I didn't get in on this? How could it be $1 million per Bitcoin? And then next year it's like $2 million. That's the way I see it.
Do you see this as something that I know you use the metaphor of a dam breaking and that it's going to happen fast, but sometimes it takes a long time to get to that point where things happen fast. Right? Yeah. Do you see this as the kind of thing where it's like 10, 20 years before we see that dam break? Do you see it as like, man, I think this is like 1 to 2 years or somewhere in between? And I'm not going to hold you accountable to like a prediction. I'm not going to be like, this is what you predicted. I'm just curious what you suspect, how you suspect it's going to unfold.
Well, there was a quote that I came across recently where it says, things often take longer than you anticipate, but happen faster than you expect.
I love that.
Yeah, exactly. I did too. I thought that was a brilliant quote, and that's going to be like this, But if you look at what we're up against, because of the block reward halving, it is a race against time. This is why BSV is scaling massively, and it had to happen like yesterday. We cannot ponder on this much longer. We need all the transactions we need every single crypto transaction on the BSV blockchain in order for those transactions, in order to aid the miners because of this block reward halving that is coming. We need literally everything on chain as soon as possible, and that involves flipping the price of BTC and BCH. And this is where those guys who could do this have to play an absolute blinder. So we've already learned from Roger and Jihan, who tried to do a quick pump. They basically tried to pump the price. They were like, right, we'll try and pump BCH over BTC. Hash rate will follow it. Everybody will use it, and that's it. Job done. They hadn't counted on the indoctrination of these BTCers believing this censorship resistant crap. And hodl away and all this stuff about not using it and not scaling the blockchain. You're not meant to touch it. And so these people basically feel as though they've won through hodling. So this time, in order for them to actually sell BTC, because the market has to decide. This is the trick. You cannot decide for someone. Yeah, you can be a huge player, but it is the market that has to decide. And so basically these people, the market has to be squeezed so hard now that it's going to be fascinating to see what needs to happen, in order for them to make that switch. So, it cannot, and we only get one shot at this. That is it. And this is where I think Sun Tzu's Art of War comes in, where he said, every battle is won before it is ever fought. So someone like me, I'm looking at what's going on, and I'm just like, right, that's in place. That's in place. This is going on. That's being built. This is happening right now. They're doing this. I'm looking at all these things, and I'm like, oh, this is amazing. This is amazing. Is this going to pan out in the way that I can see it? There is so much stuff going on, and it's kind of like.
What do you think happens at the halving, or the halvening, the halving, however you say it?
Yeah, the halving. So that is absolutely fundamental to a trigger, because in order for the hash rate to come over onto BSV, the miners have to be supported. You can't just simply trash the price of BTC and crash the entire market, because miners will go bust, and miners play an essential role in securing the network. So the miners need to be thrown a lifeline. So how is that going to be done?
Do you see any kind of like tether manipulation scheme a la 2017 to try to boost up the BTC price really high? Like, or do you see BTC getting wrecked? Do you see it going to zero? What's your prediction for that? Or maybe we shouldn't call it prediction. What's your? I don't want you to feel limited in what you want to say by the thought that somebody's going to be like, oh, you were wrong. Like,
oh no,
what do you suspect?
I'm certain of this. Every single other cryptocurrency will go to zero. All of them. BTC, BCH.
Say that one more time.
Every single other cryptocurrency will go to zero. Every single one.
Yeah, but you mean that eventually, right?
Well, I say eventually, but things might take longer than you anticipate, but they'll happen faster than you expect. But all these people, for example, that are hodling BTC and holding BCH and all this kind of stuff, and they're saying, oh, should I let go? And I'm just like, look, you're just waiting for it to go to zero. That's all you're doing by holding these crap. You're just waiting for it to go to zero. How long is it going to take? Does it have to go to zero before you suddenly change your minds? You've got an opportunity now if you can understand what I am telling you. And to be honest with you, I mean, those who have fed this narrative, Blockstream, that were funded by 100 million, those guys that got a share of that, they don't care that people holding BTC are going to get wrecked. They're not bothered at all. So effectively, it's going to be the last movers who are going to come off worst. So in terms of sort of like Darwinian theory, survival of the fittest or survival of the aptest. It is literally going to be that. This is going to be Darwinian theory played out in front of our eyes. The first movers are going to be the intelligent ones who can see what's happening. So unfortunately, it's going to expose those who are intellectually challenged. In a way. But it's just like, how many times do you have to be told? Do you know what I mean? It's like, look, I told you this. What's your excuse?
So here's another question I have for you then. Let's assume all this transpires as you say. There are a lot of crypto thought leaders who have built up some pretty impressive followings, at least in terms of size, right? Mm-hmm. And they've built their brand around bashing BSV, bashing Craig Wright. So Peter McCormack, for example, right? He stuck his neck out there pretty hard.
Yeah.
How do people like that, Tone Vays and the like, whatever, how do they flip? What happens? What happens if there's a flippening? BTC bottoms. BSV goes up, do these guys disappear? Do they does the Bitcoin does what Bitcoin did become what BSV did? Like what
Well,
do they just flip and become commentators for BSV? Do they disappear? Do they admit they're wrong? What's your prediction on that?
so the best prediction is basically based on a case study of what happened to Roger Ver. You know, Roger Ver was
Oh,
yeah, so what happened to Roger Ver? So Roger Ver was initially called the Bitcoin Jesus. He was the one that everybody wanted to have on the show. They were asking him for his predictions and stuff like that. You know, and then when his predictions didn't come to fruition, suddenly, you know, what's his name? Anthony Pompolopoulos, whatever his name is. You know, suddenly he's the one that's on CNBC, you know, talking about, you know, Bitcoin or your BTC as though it's still Bitcoin and the protocol is still as Satoshi Nakamoto, you know, set it out to be, you know, without having a clue what's actually really gone on. So yeah, they'll basically just fizzle away into obscurity with a few of their, you know, followers still hanging on to every word, but there'll be a very small minority.
yeah, it'll be interesting. So I think it'll be interesting to see what happens with Roger, though. I think I think there will come a point where he'll side with BSV. I don't think the success of BSV depends on that.
I think Roger's got two options. He can either come to BSV or go to prison. That's it. They're the only options he's got. You know, and at the moment the hole that he's digging for himself is so deep. You know,
so let's talk about that for a minute, because I think there's a lot of stuff going on. Lot of 5D chess, a lot of different games being played. Do you think? So you take this case right now, the Kleiman Wright case. Mm-hmm. Well, I'll just ask you, how do you think that ends?
Well, I mean, this is the point. So CSW is the defendant in that case at the moment. So when you are a defendant, you want to give as little away as possible. You want to stall, you want to prevent, you want to stay stum. You know, you because you're the defendant, you're not the plaintiff. When you're the plaintiff, you're effectively like the striker. That's when you're attacking. Yeah, that's when you come out guns blazing. So basically, his job as a defendant is just basically to make the plaintiff's job as difficult as possible. You know, oh, I'm not sure about this. I don't know about that. I haven't got that. You know, that's not right. Oh, I don't know anything about this. You know, basically, the only thing that IRA has got to go on is the information that CSW is giving them. That is it. That is literally it. You know, and they're saying, oh, you need to give us this, you need to give us that. You know, he could easily just turn around and go, well, I haven't got it. That's it. Case closed. You know, but the fact is he is being honest and he is giving them, you know, a little bit of information to go on. But, I mean, as far as I know, you know, CSW offered IRA 12 million to just basically sod off, you know, and
crazy.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think IRA's going to get anything now. But I mean, you know, somebody said to me, here, Toshi, here's 12 million quid, do one. I'd be like, all right, see ya. 12 million? Nice one. Do you know what I mean? I'm out of here. See you later. But greed got the better of him.
Right. I think this case of all the cases that Craig has threatened to initiate, this is the one that it seems he did not initiate. So it's a it's a different kind of battle, different kind of game. All interesting stuff, man. But I better get going, man. I better let you go. Like I said, if you let me keep asking questions, then we'll end up extending this show for another hour. We've been going for a while, but we could do it again, man. I got a lot of stuff I love to kind of talk with you about and chat with you about. I know this was kind of more of like an intro setup call, but as I continue my studies and my research, because like being, you know, like this isn't a stopping point for me. This is not the sort of thing where it's like, yay, I think I found the original Bitcoin. Let me now be intellectually lazy and just sit back and hope other people build and then I can get rich off it. It's like, man, I really want to understand this more and more and more and explore develop my potential to be an educator, a contributor, education-wise and entrepreneurial-wise to this space. And so I'm always checking things out. I'm always reading stuff, and so I've always got questions on my mind, debates on my mind. So we got a lot of stuff that we can dig into. This was the setup call, but let's do it again.
Yeah, this is great. Well, how about next time? I mean, if you want to get like Steve on the show or Derek on the show, I'm more than happy to answer their questions as well. And then from my answers, if you have any more questions yourself on the answers that I give them, I'll be more than happy to answer yours as well.
Sounds good.
And then I'll put your tactics into play, and there'll be BSVs by the end of the show.
I love it, man. Yeah, it's a lot of stuff. That's what makes this really fun, because history is happening, right before our very eyes, and we can talk about it in real time.
It is. Right, mate. That's been great. Well, thank you very much once again, and I shall press the red button and see you soon, mate.
See you soon, man.
Cheers, mate. See you later.
Cheers.
Bye.